Hi everyone, welcome to Mel's Campervan Journeys, and I'm going to be sharing what I learned in my first year of campervan life. I've done a previous video on the first few months of when I bought a campervan, looking at the practical aspects of that. And this one I wanted to share all of the different things that I've discovered that you don't necessarily know until you start pursuing your dreams and ideas in practice, what can occur as a result of doing that. So I bought the van early in January, and I wanted to share some of those things of what I've discovered with you. So the first one is that even if you have passions and desires that you want to pursue, that can also coincide with anxiety. So sometimes anxiety and fear and doubt can creep in, and that's why people put a lot of what they'd really like to do on the back burner or wait until they've retired. So even if you feel that anxiety coming in, it doesn't mean to say that it's something that you shouldn't be doing. Sometimes it's just an indicator of actually starting to feel like, some excitement at the idea that you can start to pursue some of the things that you love, which is great when you start doing that. So buying the van itself was exhilarating, but it also did bring some self-doubt and worry for me, because I was thinking, is this a pipe dream? Will I lose interest in it? What about the van? The van's much older than any car that I've had. Will there be any issues? And in fact, my first trip, the van did break down, and I managed. And so it's where you get to learn how resilient you are and what you need to think about when you're in different parts of the country and, something happens to your van. So certainly the practical elements of getting your camper van checked over and having good breakdown cover, especially if they can take you to the event and bring you back as well as everything else, checking over that van can certainly put your mind at rest. But you can never really plan for any eventualities, because we just don't know until we try something. So sometimes we need to learn to distinguish between fear of the unknown and genuine misgivings, which can be a vital lesson. So anxiety also accompanies growth. So when I'm working with clients or teaching workshops on mental health, we use the safety versus fear model that, when we're safe, we're doing the same thing every day, even if we're bored and we're fed up of monotony and routine, we can also quite enjoy that safety that gives us. Everything's predictable and there isn't any real stresses unless something comes along that we weren't expecting. But when we get ideas about something that we'd like to try, it also increases the sense of growth that's needed. So that anxiety can come in and it can lead us to either pushing us further, or for some people it can leave us debilitated. So I've got a few clients who have avoided quite a few different things because they would get absolutely debilitated by the anxiety. So I had that anxiety when I bought the van, like I said, and I had anxiety about how I'd drive it. I'd never drove a van before, and also how I'd manage getting to places, because you have to think a bit differently if you're not checking into a hotel and carrying your bags with you with a car. You've got everything that you need in your van. So there was that anxiety, but I thought, if I don't do this, do I want to get to that point in life, where I look back and think, there's regrets, there's things that I didn't do and I wish I would have done them. And what's the worst that could happen is I do it for a few months and then decide to sell the van. So the other aspect was also about preparing for the road before setting off and tackling the practicalities, like I said, about understanding the mechanics of the van, sorting out the insurance, the running costs and maintenance. And if you haven't bought a van yet and you're thinking about doing so, you really want to get an idea of the kind of insurance prices on different makes and models, because it can make a massive difference. But to be fair, I've had more issues with the dodgy laptop chargers that I've bought over this last few years than I've had with the van. So yes, check out the insurance, running costs and maintenance needs, and anything that you need to do to get you back on the road. So also equipping the van with essentials, so I've got some things in there that I like, cushions and covers, and I wanted to see how the van run before I started doing any more major work on the inside. So freedom and joy, well, that's why most of us want to get a camper van, get on the road, because that sense of freedom that you get and the joy of turning up at different places and seeing the most amazing scenery from all different perspectives, like I said, in so many different parts of the country. But the first few trips that I had was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Like I said, on one of the trips, I think it was the second trip, I was on my way down to Bournemouth, and it was raining really heavily, and I think some water was sucked up into the van. It started to drag while I was on the motorway, and I had to make a decision of either get off the motorway at the next junction, because there wasn't any hard shoulder. And when I came off the junction and got to the traffic lights, the van completely stopped working. It just stopped and no traffic could get past me. And people were starting to beep, and I sat there. I called the police because it was a safety issue. And then when I turned the van over again, after about 15 minutes, it started again. So it was a little bit hairy because I had people with me and I wasn't really sure what to do at that stage. And I was just on the way to the journey. And then it was fine then for the rest of the journey. I don't really know what had happened. So each journey brings that sense of freedom, joy, anticipation, and sometimes nerve-wracking experiences. And some of the joy at turning up at some of the very simple campsites, that have got the basic necessities. But I've got people who respect each other's space, and, waking up in the morning where it was just incredibly still was just really, really nice. Anyone who does anything like this on a regular basis know that, just being in that sense of simplicity and stillness can be incredibly joyous. So every experience can be a reminder of why you've chosen to have that. I wouldn't say it's a lifestyle because, of course, today I'm back at home and I've been in and out of the van, but I've been local in December as some different goals before I set up on my journeys again next week. Also, I met some really nice, kind people when I had an issue with the van where the battery went, and I was in Devon. One of the other vannies and the local workmen came over and gave me a hand and got the van started. And they're often really keen to share tips and, about their own van journeys and where they've been travelling, and any tips that they can share with you. So the camaraderie on that is really interesting. But also, everyone's from a different background. The only thing you share in common is that, you've got a camper van and you like spending a lot of time on the road and enjoy that real sense of freedom that it gives you. So it was really nice and heartwarming to know that there are lots of humans out there that can just be really kind and helpful. So the other aspect is the healing power of nature. And nature has the ability to rejuvenate the soul. And from the sound of the seeds, of the stillness of remote campsites, each moment in nature felt like a gift. Even in rainy days, in the van, it brought a sense of cosy contentment. There was a weekend that I spent down on Boscombe, on the bay down there near Bournemouth, and on the first day it was incredibly hot. I was parked next to the beach and the waves were rolling in and it was just absolute bliss. And on the second day it poured down all day and there was no one around, but it was just really nice. Of course, when you get out of the van and you go for a walk and you've got to have your boots on and you get soaking, that's a different story, because trying to dry clothes in a van is also a challenge. So you really need to think about the type of clothing that you take with you. It's okay going for weekends because you can just take your bare necessities, but if you're going for much longer, you need to think about clothes for all aspects of nature: boots, sandals, swimming gear, raincoats, wind hats, all sorts of different clothes. But also it's good because you end up, because you don't want to take a lot of things with you, you end up having a much more minimalist approach to life because everything is contained within that small space. So balancing work and travel. So a lot of people, when they start to travel in their camper van, are also working remotely. Some are doing it as a full-time experience where they're traveling from place to place and they've retired, or they're having a year out. I'm been able to work remotely. I've been working remotely for the past 4 years, and in the last 2 I've been able to work my timetables so that I can be on the road for a few days, stop off work for a few hours or the day, and then go to another location. And that's the beauty of it. If I go and visit different friends, I can still work and carry on nourishing, that desire to be out and a free spirit and having those new experiences. And it was great on some days. I might work for a few hours in the morning, go for a walk down the coast, go and have some breakfast or lunch, chat to people, and then go back and work on the projects that I was working on. So it was a great balance that helped me get anywhere near into the state of burnout that I've had in the past. And burnout is just not a pleasurable experience at all. And it can take a while to recover from that. So it's also about keeping that passion alive. And the more that you do things that you enjoy and pursue your passions and your desires and the things that you want to do, the less likely you are going to really get into that state of monotony and burnout that can happen if you're in a job that you don't enjoy. Now, every one of us have worked in a job of some sort that maybe we've not enjoyed, and for a time being, it's part of the plan. We need to pay things off. We've got families to look after, but the best way to start a side hustle or access your dreams is to start doing it part-time, outside of working hours or at the weekends. You can combine these things so you start to get a taste for that adventure, and that can really give you that sense of keeping going and holding that dream and doing more and more of that, so that you can keep that passion alive regardless of whether or not you've got a plan to keep doing what you're doing for the 6 months or a year. The other thing I noticed was the confidence that I strengthened on every trip, because when you first get a van, trying to think of where you want to go, so you really need to look at parts of the country you're going to divide your trips in. Some people go from the end of Cornwall up to John O'Groats in Scotland within a few weeks, and other people will stick to a particular area like Oxfordshire or Cornwall, Devon, Wales, the Kent coastline, because with the price of petrol being on the road all the time, that's where a lot of your money can end up literally being burnt off. But the other aspect of that is really doing some research of the places that you might want to go and stay. Do you want something basic, a basic campsite that you can turn up at and stay a few days? Or do you want to go to some of the farms? There's lots of farms that let vans stay, or something that's got more facilities there. So there are lots of places to stay. There are several websites. And so I did do quite a bit of research in January and had a look at what was around. Because the thing is that different people cope with different amounts of time driving. And I could get really tired after about 4 hours of driving. So I had to break up the day and the trip. So I had to spend a certain amount of time driving and then stay in one place for maybe 2 or 3 days. But it gets to the point where you end up just hitting the road, and it just starts to become second nature, and there's less anxiety around that. But the confidence will grow, the more that you do it and you go and explore new territory, and at the end of the day or the week or the month, you can have a look at the trips that you've done and how nervous you felt before you got out and started exploring. For some people, though, the downside is if you're traveling alone, it can be quite a solo activity. But because I work online and I keep in contact with friends, they're key things that can keep you connected to the outside world. It can feel quite lonely and isolating if you're spending large amounts of time on the road. So do take that into account. Everybody's got a certain level in which they like to be around people and time that they like to have by themselves. So if you're quite intuitive and insular and introvert, then you might want to spend time with people, going to festivals for a few days, and then be quite happy for a few weeks on the road. I balance mine, I'll have a few days where I'm out and about exploring, and then maybe the odd day where I'm talking to people or I'm working on different things. So as I said, there are challenges. I don't want to paint that Instagram type lifestyle where I only take pictures of sunshine and beaches, and I've taken a few, but I've also been on those same beaches. And in that same week, we've had spring, summer, winter and autumn in one day, because that's just the nature of being in the UK. So you do need to think and plan and research a little bit. You don't have to plan every detail of your route, but you need to know what you do. If you want to finish the drive early, you need to have an idea of what's around different areas, how you can access, even simple things like petrol stations on country roads. Occasionally I've got to that point of nearly running out of petrol and it being another 20 miles before I can fill up the tank again. So it's about having the basics, water, petrol, oil, all those basic things in your cab to keep you going. So I also looked at different routes, and it's hard to say what the costs are because it's hard to know how much your van is burning up. Of course, some burn up more than others. And also, I think the key thing for me as well is a few years ago, because I was still recovering from a car accident, I had real back and hip issues, and I used to have to get out of the car like after an hour and walk and stretch because I had really bad sciatica and pain in my shoulder from the driving. And with the van, the steering wheels, actually you have to pull it quite hard at times, and so long drives can actually be really tough on the body. And because I practice yoga and a lot of stretching, getting up in the morning or before a trip of doing some yoga, stretching my body and then stretching at the end of the day can really stop the body from seizing up. Because when I've not done that, I've really noticed the difference. So learning what kind of stretches you can do in and outside your van is really key. And if you do 3 to 5 of them every day, you can really stave off any problems later on down the line. So I talked a little bit about the weather. So of course there are limited drying options. Trying to work out where a laundrette is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I know some of the campsites might have them and holiday parks. I haven't used them because I can normally manage for 2 or 3 weeks without even having to think about using a laundry. But it's things like towels, and if you've been out and got absolutely soaking, so sometimes you need a couple of jackets and a couple of pairs of trainers. I think on the Bournemouth beach one day, I think I went through 3 pairs of trainers because I was walking on the sand and got caught out by the sea a few times. So living a life without exploring your passions can leave you feeling stagnant and unfulfilled. So rediscovering the joy starts with small intentional steps. So as I said earlier, if you're working a full-time job and you've got responsibility and it's something you'd like to do, one small step can take you towards your dream, whether that is in a car, a small van, or buying a camper van, is starting to focus on where you'd like to go, where you'd like to visit, what you like about travel, what places you'd like to explore in the UK and why. And once you really start to focus your mind on those areas and see yourself getting a van and thinking about the kind of features it wants, it really helps pump up and generate some really positive feelings around that. And the more that you do that, even if you start with a small step of hiring a van, going for weekends in the car, if you're a bit nervous about getting on the road and driving again, as I was, after my car accident, I was really nervous driving on the road. And then reflect on what excites you. And it can be tricky to do that. If you're in a state of depression, low mood, and feel a lack of motivation, it can be quite difficult to connect with what excites you. So sometimes you need to dig a little bit into the past of what used to excite you, what you used to enjoy doing. And that can just, kickstart that process for you. So think about what activities light you up, and journaling can be a great way, of course, we know, to uncover hidden passions. So as I've said, take one small step. See the new year not necessarily as a goal to lose 20 pounds in the gym, get fit, be able to run 5k within 3 weeks. Sometimes that's too daunting for people. The gap between where you are now and where you want to be can feel too big and too overwhelming. So start with one small step. If you're nervous about getting out driving, then just start to drive a little bit further than your local area. If you want to try out a camper van and see what it feels like, there's plenty of companies that are hiring vans for a weekend, and it's insured and taxed and you don't have any of that worry. So you can start with that. Also, you can do your guided visualizations or daydreaming and thinking about the trips that you want to take, and get inspired. Surround yourself with people. Go to van festivals, join other people, any friends you've got that have got a camper van. If you enjoy camping, take a tent and just get back out there and start doing some of those things, because some of those activities don't cost that much. Once you've got the van, if it's working fairly well, of course you need to take into account petrol, but even if you're working full time and you can use your holiday by taking Fridays and Mondays off, you can get a really good trip in for 4 days to just experience that. So step by step, take the first step, embrace the unknown, as growth requires stepping outside your comfort zone. Let curiosity guide you. So things that also I noticed I was able to do a lot more of was being mindful and practicing mindfulness and meditation, and even yoga. Yoga's not so great on the beach. It's fine in some of the campsites that I stayed in. I did some yoga, but I took a really nice blanket with me as well as the mat, because the ground can be really uneven. And you can do some of the yoga stretches inside when you pull out the bed. So that's quite good if you've got a strong bed. And the meditation and mindfulness is, some of the places are just so serene and quiet. If you park up your camping chair and sit on the beach, listen to the waves all day, you know, that in itself is a mindful activity. And what that means often is just letting go and just being in that moment. So here are some ideas to get you started, and I will be doing some other videos. I've got part 2 and part 3 to this, but just to get you started on your own dreams and desires, especially if it's, you know, you want to give campervan life a go, is create a vision board, collect pictures and experiences that you want to bring into your life, pictures of you fishing, wearing the jacket that you would take with you, any areas that you'd want to go and visit, waterfalls, countryside, market towns, and start to think about those details in a lot more depth. And then set one goal for the first week of January to go out, and even if that's just looking online and starting to do some research. And I find with anything I do, whether that is focusing on the campervan trips or any of the projects that I've got, once you get intense focus, that kind of takes over the whole of your thinking. And it's quite interesting what starts to happen when, you know, you focus quite strongly on something that you enjoy and that you want to do. And then celebrate every milestone, you know, and acknowledge and savor every one of those steps. So on one of the trips was in, where was I? I think I was in Devon, and I had to look on Google Maps to see where the local beaches were. I didn't want to drive out that far. So it was only about a 20-minute drive, not far past Bude. And I found this little beach off a beaten track. And I was driving down the road, and the road just went deeper and deeper and deeper into the mountain. And I really started to get quite anxious because I knew that I'd have to come back up that way. So I found the car park. And I was in 2 minds as to whether now to walk down to the beach, because I had no idea how long it was going to take me. So it was only about another 10-minute walk, and the beach was lovely. It was really wild and rugged, and there was a cafe selling coffees, and I hung around there for a bit with a bit of anticipation about how I'd make my way back. And I did. And it was great, but I had that anticipation and anxiety a few times when I was in the van. But you have to think, what's the worst that can happen? You've got recovery, and make sure that you've got things in there that if you do break down, you're safe, you've got something to drink, and you can look out for yourself for, 4 or 5 hours. So hopefully my campervan adventures have sparked something in you, and I'd love for you to join me as I share more about my life, passions and personal growth. So let's explore together how we can create a life that we love, one step at a time. If you'd like to find out more, just email me. The information is at the bottom of the page. But like and subscribe, because I'll be doing more. I've got some trips coming up that I want to share, and share any of your own inspiring journeys of anything that you might have been anxious about, but then you did and enjoyed it incredibly. So hopefully this has inspired you. The last thing I want to say is that I'm in the in the group of women who are in their midlife, and lots of people get to midlife and have lots of dreams, passions and desires, but don't start to live them out. And so this is why I do some of these videos, is to show to people that, you know, life can be tough and we can be in that hamster wheel from one place to the next, you know, with kids, with school, with challenges that we face, but having dream time and just really reflecting on all the things that you'd love to do, regardless of the resources, can really start to inspire you to move towards, even if it's saving up a little bit at a time, to the things that you'd like to do. So hopefully this has inspired you.